Thank you. Good evening to all of you, and welcome to the 26th round of Cairo Climate Talks, which, as a bow to the industry, is taking place in the Conrad Hotel instead of, as usual, in the German Science Center. So, tourism is one of the strong connecting links between Germany and Egypt. We are the third largest group of tourists in Egypt, and what's even more, all of us at the embassy take a passionate personal interest in this particular link between Germany and Egypt. I've been confronted with the problems of the tourism industry from my very first day, more than half a year ago. And I think what Egyptians and those active in the industry are most focused on now is to get back to the state before the crisis. Have as many tourists as before in the same places. There's a lot of amazement that Upper Egypt, where there's never been a negative travel advice, is not really gearing up yet. So why is that the case? And of course in Egypt we have very different forms of tourism. You have those who just want to have a week in the sun for as little money as possible. You have quality tourism, educated people who usually went to see the pyramids, the museums, and Upper Egypt. You had desert tourism, you had all of it. And but of course it is a mass phenomenon in Egypt, and as a mass phenomenon, and notwithstanding the differentiation in the different forms of, among the different forms of tourism and industry, it posed certain problems, like endangering biodiversity, like the overconsumption of water, energy and food, with no incentive for the individual tourist to economize, as he is not the one paying for the additional bill, and by the way consuming energy and water that's otherwise much subsidized in Egypt by the taxpayer basically. And we have still phenomena like cruise ships, which are among the worst polluters apparently on the River Nile. So how is that going to look in the future? I think it's necessary to look beyond the immediate objective of restoring things to the status quo ante and try to shape what is coming, because Egypt wants to graduate from mass to quality tourism, and I think there's always a chance for you to shape the future if you are at the cutting edge of it. Now, this is not denying that there are parts of the industry which are already at the cutting edge and which provide everything that we wish for. The question is, how can this be encouraged or further influenced by the state? What other forms of tourism can be created, for example, to revive Upper Egypt? Upper Egypt, as I said, is a fascinating case because it was a favorite destination of the educated public. But is this going to last? Don't they want to have something maybe in the desert or in the nature into the bargain? And wouldn't ecotourism provide one of the solutions to this? So this is this is a lot of questions to you as the specialists, and I'm very much looking forward to the answers that you may give. We at the embassy and back in the capital in Berlin, we are of course, when it comes to travel advice, in the first place responsible to the safety of our tourists, but the welfare of the Egyptian economy is a very close second. So we are ourselves very interested in this topic, and we hope that the tourism industry will expand again to its old glamour and maybe beyond, and whatever we can do to encourage this, we will certainly do. So I wish you a sustainable journey through this evening and a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Your Excellency. I forgot to mention one little thing is that His Excellency Hisham Zazua, the Minister of Tourism, after he had intended to come and join your good self in opening up the topic today, he had to go attend something else with the Prime Minister of Korea. So he apologized, but it was late in the day. So on his behalf, I extend his apology to yourself and to everybody in the audience. Let's get started with the day. We have 5 very knowledgeable and very tired and worn out speakers from the day. We had a very long day, but very, very rich with information. I'll start from second to your left, Professor Jeffrey Lipman, who lives in Belgium, but he has been associated with the tourism industry for a long time, and he has a very interesting title, a disruption architect. And he is a director of Green Earth Travel and president of the International Council of Tourism Partners. Mr. Amr Ali, right next to him, is in the middle. He's the managing director of an NGO, a non-government organization called HEPCA, Hurghada Environmental Protection and Conservation Association. We have Mr. Dr. Ahmed Musa, owner of Desert Lodge in Dakhla Oasis, and he's going to show us some visual presentation today for 5 minutes. Before last, and certainly not least, is Mr. Frank Oostdam. Frank is a director of the Dutch Association of Travel Agents and Tour Operators, ANVAR. Then last, but certainly not least, the guy that we always put him at the end because he's the best speaker, is Mr. Faisal Isa, representing Solar Shams, one of the companies that is a service provider providing environmental or renewable solutions. Let me just very briefly tell you why the mix of this panel would give us a very good, well-rounded perspective on the topic at hand. From the left-hand side, we have a service provider. Next to him, Mr. Lipman, who is an international thought leader of green growth and has produced a lot of issues and has been a friend of the travel sector in Egypt for a long time with a lot of good thoughts. Mr. Amr Ali is a good outspoken person representing people that do care about the natural resources and the cultural heritages in Egypt. And he's very frank, he's very straightforward. He provides a very good balance to those who are reluctant to say things as they should be. Mr. Ahmed Musa is also a provider of services in the ecotourism or eco lodges, which is a different sector from the 5-star hotels. And again, last but not least, Mr. Oostdam, who represents the views and perspectives of the tour operators, that I would refer to them as the wholesale people that bring tourists to places. So with this multiple perspectives, we should be able to run a nice session to hear what they have to say relevant to green tourism. We at the Ministry of Tourism have adopted green tourism being a part and parcel of our future. We want to see transformation towards greener practice. We don't think there's a destination called green tourism. We think it's a life journey. We have to change ourselves as well as those partners that we work with. And that takes a lot of efforts, a lot of projects, a lot of resources, a lot of friends, a lot of international development partners. With that, I'm going to start asking each of the panelists some questions, and after the answer, I will ask your good selves to write any comments or questions that you might have before the end, so we can give it to them and they can reflect on these thoughts.
Basically, you started wrong.
I'm always wrong.
No, not you personally. I'm talking about the government. You started wrong. You started with mass tourism. I'll give you a very funny example of sustainable development. El Guna Resort, which is 25 kilometers north of Regala, they have a waterfront of 2 kilometers. They have 4,200 rooms right now. They have real estate, they have mosques, churches, schools. They have created a community with If you decide tomorrow morning to turn El Guna into a green city, green town, green destination, it's going to be very simple. Because you have one developer who developed 2 kilometers of a stretch, which is not much, and you've created this number of rooms, 4,200 rooms. From Safaga to Marsa Alam, which is around 200 kilometers, you don't have 4,200 rooms. You don't. The government, when they develop, they use the strip development. So they have cut the coast into small pieces of land. And for each piece of land, you've put 400 rooms in a U-shape, swimming pool in the middle, faced by a coral reef system that does not let the customer access the sea. So the customer is actually locked in the hotel, cannot go outside. There are no services, no infrastructure. Safaga, Qusayr, Marsa Alam are small towns without infrastructure, so they cannot actually support the tourism industry. So you have actually spread the whole investment over 200, 300 kilometers with zero infrastructure. If you come now, after 15, 20 years of designating these pieces of land, and go to these investors and you tell them, I want you to turn green, this would be a joke. Because he's still suffering to provide himself with electricity. He's not clustered. He's not El Guna. He's not Sal Hashish, which is another successful model of development. So you've stretched them along the coastline in a very unsustainable manner, using 200, 300 kilometers of waterfront, of your fringing reef, abusing the natural resources in the area. And then you try to find them a scheme where they all join and carry a flag, which is not going to be possible. So that's why the Green Star Initiative was very successful when we started with El Guna. And then when Trafco came in, we added, or TUI came in, we added Makadi Bay. And they have 10, 12 facilities over there. So it was very easy. It was clusters of hotels. If you ask a visitor today and tell him, we want to go and do an investment in PV, he's going to tell you my priorities would be Guna, Port Gallup, Sal Hashish, Soma Bay. Easy game. One developer, one policy maker, spreading a grid over there would be a piece of cake. Instead of going to Marsa Alam and say you want to spread this grid over 200 kilometers. So actually we're trying to fix up a big problem with small solutions. I don't think it's going to work. What I believe that will work is a model like this, or the model of Munir Ni'matallah. These models are depending completely on the exclusivity, which is the model of South Africa. You give concessions to CC Africa, they give you a lodge over 50 kilometers of exclusivity. He owns the area, he has a concession of a national park with 50 rooms, and the room sells for 400 euros per night. The $80 number that you have is the $80 of spending, not the room average. It's the $80 spending. So this includes the room average, excursion, even the bottle of mineral water that the tourist would buy. We're far away from $80 average. We're far away from that. There are contracts in Marsa Alam that are signed for $13 per night. 13 in 4-star facilities. So you are on the edge of collapse for certain operators because you've been through catastrophes in the past 3-4 years, huge catastrophes, which led that you're using, we have 16 flights coming from St. Petersburg and Moscow to Marsa Alam Airport a week now. 16 flights. This is scary. Because when we had 23 flights a week from Germany, and we were talking from Düsseldorf, Bremen, Stuttgart, Hamburg, Berlin, these were big boom. If you're having 16 flights to Marsa Alam from Russia, with all the respect, of course, to all the customers coming from there, but this is a formula of complete depletion of their natural resources. By the time we're going to make these people comply, the resources would have disappeared. We're not going to be talking about how to save the fish and the turtles and all these jolly things. These resources would be completely depleted. The government has to put its foot now, seriously, on putting a vision that the coming 4 ministers of tourism and environment will commit to. Visions in our country, unfortunately, they change by the change of the minister. And this is catastrophic because then this is not a strategy or a vision. It's a short-term plan that lasts with the lasting of the minister in his post. Then a new minister comes and he writes a new vision, a new strategy, which is absurd. Thank you.